Hi, Daniel Johnson here, and this is a little help special about sickle cell. Now, we have a wonderful guest called Hayley King, and she has a great charity called Sienna Smile. Now, she is also a wonderful winner of the Pride of Britain Award for fundraising of last year, and she sits down with me and we talk all about sickle cell and her little helps. So, let's have a listen. Hayley, how are you doing?
I'm really well, thank you. Busy, but well.
Yeah, I mean, that's the funny thing, especially in the last year. I feel, you're a mum of two, you work, you've got loads of stuff going on, and you are making a difference. And I feel like that is so important in this time, because do you know what? Not many people have time or can do or want to. So can you tell us a little bit about your history?
Like you said, I'm a single parent of two children. My daughter Sienna has sickle cell anemia. I also run two businesses, so I'm a silversmith and a freelance hairstylist, and I just felt that I felt very isolated and very alone having a child with a long-term health condition, and I just wanted to help other people, basically.
And that's exactly what you've done, really. Which is amazing because, like I said, a lot of people don't have the time, and especially if you've got the struggles at home like most people do, and every day I'm doing the laundry and, going to work and getting food and what you're going to have for food and kids, squabbling and stuff, and you've got another thing on top. Then you thought, actually, I want to make a difference and help other people, which is amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about sickle cell for anyone that doesn't really know?
Yeah, sure. So, sickle cell, there's different types of sickle cell, firstly. It's an inherited blood condition, and sickle cell affects the red blood cells and causes them to become an abnormal sickled shape, which is where it gets its name from. These sickle cells die very, very quickly in comparison to healthy red blood cells, which causes anemia to start with, and also these cells are very hard and rigid and they get caught in the blood vessels. And when this happens, it's referred to as a sickle cell crisis, and it causes excruciating pain. It also starves that area of the body from oxygen, and if it's not treated correctly, it can cause organ failure, stroke, and unfortunately, in some cases, it can be fatal.
And that must be really tough when, you find out that, your child suffers in this way. And is that fair for me to say suffers in this way? Because I feel like sometimes you're like, actually, they have something. They're not always suffering. You know what I mean? And they're managing, maybe.
I myself do refer to it as suffering because particularly when Sienna's in hospital and or she's experiencing pain, I do say to people that watching your child suffer is horrific. So, yeah, it's the right terminology, I think.
So from that and, finding out, how did you find out that this was going on?
So as I said before, sickle cell is genetic. So a baby must inherit one abnormal gene, hemoglobin gene, from the father and one abnormal hemoglobin gene from from the mum, sorry. And in my case, Sienna's father and I are both sickle cell carriers. And so, yeah, it's really difficult to know that your child has inherited something from you.
Yeah, I mean, it must be. And also, did you even know this beforehand?
So I knew I was a carrier. And when I first met Sienna's dad, before we even started dating, I did ask if he was also a carrier. And he never heard of sickle cell, didn't really know what it was, so called his mum. And she said, oh yeah, he definitely doesn't have it. And it wasn't until I was 16 weeks pregnant with Sienna that my midwife sent him for a blood test just to double check, because I knew that I definitely was a carrier. And it was then that we found out that he was a carrier, and there was a 1 in 4 chance that Sienna would have sickle cell anemia.
I mean, it's difficult, 1 in 4 that, you don't really know. Did you have in the headspace for yourself that this could be a situation that would go forward? Or did you kind of, obviously, doing blood tests and you sort of knew you were a carrier, did you let it go, or were you straight on it straight away and just like, we need to know?
So I thought I'd done the right thing by asking the questions before we started dating. Looking back now, I probably should have pushed for him to have a blood test before we even started to date. And even when we did receive the information that he was a carrier as well, I think you always hope that it's not going to happen to you. And even when Sienna was diagnosed with sickle cell, she was 3 days old, and Sienna was 11 weeks premature. So at that time, we were dealing with other major stuff, with just making sure that she stayed alive, kind of thing. And it wasn't until we left hospital with Sienna, she was a month old, and then it was just like, oh my gosh, I've got this tiny baby that has a life-threatening illness. What do I do? It was really daunting and really scary.
I mean, she's 13 now.
Yeah.
So you've done pretty well. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, those journeys that you had to take must have not been easy. A lot of stuff going through your mind, a lot of sort of worries and apprehensions and stuff like that. But she's got a mum like you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, and you've really made a difference. I mean, you've set up this charity. How many people, do you work with? How many people are you helping at the moment?
So during the pandemic, things have changed a lot, because a lot of the support groups and family fun days and things used to be in person. And to be honest, in the sense of the reach that we have now has increased a lot, because a lot of the things we're doing online, a lot of the resources we provide are online. So it means that we can help people globally now. And actually 50% of the people we support don't actually live in the UK. Wow. So it's kind of been a blessing in disguise, in the sense that now we're able to help more people. But the reason I set up the charity is because there's approximately 15,000 people in the UK with sickle cell. A third of those live in London boroughs.
Wow.
Yeah, and I found that between London and the Midlands, there was nothing. There was no support for people with sickle cell. Oh. So that's why we aim to support people in the Thames Valley, sometimes Hampshire area. But yeah, there's not really a lot. There's not a lot of support. So what we can do, making a difference and just actually being really open and honest about our story, is helpful as well, especially for new parents or parents with small children. And again, just raising awareness so people understand the severity of it and can be more empathetic towards people that are affected by it.
Wow. So what are your mission and aims sort of moving forward? You've sort of filled this void that there wasn't anything sort of, and then so you started this wonderful charity. So what are your aims? What do you see coming for the future?
I think our mission is we just want to live in a world that is aware of sickle cell. I think a lot of the problem is people don't understand sickle cell. They don't understand how it's inherited. So one of our main things is educating particularly young adults with getting themselves tested and being prepared to make that decision, that if they meet somebody, knowing the statistics and things like that. There's a real lack of education within healthcare system. A lot of doctors and nurses don't actually know, unless they're a specialist hematologist or hemoglobinopathy nurse, they don't really understand how to treat patients that come into A&E and things with it. It's such a taboo now that, particularly with adults with sickle cell, they have a condition that causes excruciating pain. They ask for pain relief, and then they're accused of being pain seekers. And yeah, it's just absolutely ludicrous. So not only are they facing this condition that affects their lives, they're not even able to receive the correct treatment without judgment being passed on them by healthcare professionals. So one of our main missions is to make sure that there's better education from a university level for nurses and doctors and things like that. Same with teachers. And even today, I had an email because one of there's several triggers for a sickle cell crisis, and that's infection, dehydration, stress and anxiety can trigger a crisis, exercise. And Sienna doesn't participate in PE lessons because one of her main triggers is exercise. And I had an email from her school today saying, do you think it's okay for Sienna to finally participate? And
Do you reckon they would have spoken to her about that before speaking to you? Because like I feel like sometimes they're like, you can give it a go, can't you? And then they're like, actually, probably might need to ask you, and that's a little bit of pressure. Because I can imagine that in some sort of format, she would love to,
yeah.
if it wasn't a trigger.
Yeah, and she does. She feels like she's, especially at her age, her peers, this peer pressure thing at the age of 13 where she doesn't want to be the odd one out. She actually wants to participate. The problem is the teachers really don't understand that the sickle cell is so spontaneous. Like Sienna could be sat here now and 5 minutes later she's on the floor in major pain and we're rushing her to hospital. So for me, I think in the scenario where she doesn't receive a lot of empathy, I don't want her to be in a situation where if she was to go into crisis at school, she wouldn't feel like she receives the correct help. So for us, it's best for her to just avoid that situation.
Yeah, it's just education, and what you're doing is, giving people education and raising awareness, and starting at that university level is really important. So when those doctors and nurses are kicking through, they're like, oh, have we checked this? Should we look at this as well? And it's not just like, oh, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I sort of wrote down, is there any kind of myths around sickle cell, like that you can debunk and sort of say, look, that is not always, these are kind of, it's all, everyone has their own different stories with this, and that's not my story, or, it could happen in different places. But is there any myths that you kind of want to sort of say, that's not really the truth?
Yes. Where do I start?
We've got enough time. Keep going.
So one of the main things that I get is, isn't sickle cell a black blood thing?
Right.
No, is the answer.
And even I thought that may be a
not,
little bit as well, because that's kind of what we're portrayed to think. Is it's a bit like sometimes with other diseases and stuff like that they just say, oh, they're just for those people.
Yeah, definitely. It does predominantly affect people from the Black community. It affects people mainly from African and Caribbean heritage. However, it is definitely not just, it does not affect them. And we've had some quite insulting comments about Sienna, saying about her skin tone, she's too light to have sickle cell, or
wow.
things like that. So it's definitely a massive myth, and people shouldn't just assume that because of the way you look, you won't have it.
Yeah, that is, it's really difficult, because I guess sometimes when you hear things, we're living through loads of things right now, and you hear things and you're like, well, that's the truth.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, wait, maybe just do like a little tiny bit of reading. Maybe listen to a podcast episode, sometimes. And I think, especially when it's your own child and so going through it and stuff like that, you're seeing that their pain, and you're seeing that their story is carrying on. But at the same time, they've got this strength, and they've got a mum like you, and hopefully other parents out there are helping their children and stuff. But I think your story is really strong, because at the same time, you've had to battle with this, and then seeing, your child not being able to go out and do PE and stuff. So I just want to say well done to you.
No, thank you.
Okay, so for other parents and family members, I think we kind of said this right at the beginning, stuff like that. What little helps would you have liked to have had when this happened right at the beginning, before you even knew there's a situation? You knew you were a carrier, but what would you have liked, and what advice would you give to other parents and other people out there that may come across this?
My thing, I think, definitely is to do as much research as possible. With sickle cell, it affects each individual. It can be completely different for each person. So I now know that I can just look at Sienna and I know she's not well. And as much as she wants to try and persuade me that she's fine, I don't really need to hear it from her. I think just follow your gut instinct as well. Particularly for us, we've taken a natural route, and diet and nutrition has played a huge part in that. And I've always been very aware of, you are what you eat, basically. But actually, I didn't realize the impact of Sienna eating, a pizza. and the next day she feels really crappy about it. And I'm not to say that we completely exclude those things from her diet, but they are very far and few between because we know how much it impacts her health. And I wish I'd have realised very early on, just things like cold and also temperature change is a trigger as well. So literally I am constantly second guessing everything because I need to make a plan B for every single thing that we do. So if we're in the car, I need to think, if the car breaks down, have we got water, have we got snacks, have we got blankets if it's cold, all of this thing. So preparation and prevention are the way forward.
Wow. Can you talk me through, like, maybe when it comes to sort of the diet and stuff like that, what is Sienna sort of having? You know, what you're giving her? You said like pizzas could be a bit of a trigger. Is that because it's processed? Is it the sugar? Is it the salt? What's going on there?
Yeah, so definitely salt because dehydration is a massive issue for people with sickle cell. You want to have as much hydration as possible and avoid any sugary food, salty stuff, processed stuff. For us, so things that are high in folate, which is like natural folic acid, just anything dark green vegetables, fruits. You want to eat a rainbow and avoid anything processed.
I always say stay away from beige.
Yeah.
That's what I try to do the whole time, like no beige, nice and bright colours, which is amazing. You know, what have you learnt in you know, the last 13 years through having a child that does have sickle cell, and how strong they can be? And it's not like, it is, you know, it's not like a life sentence in the sense, like, it might be something they have to deal with forever, but it doesn't mean that they can't achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say to everybody, you know, you are more than your health condition. You don't let it define you. And we are such huge supporters of Sienna. Like, I completely idolize her. She surprises me every day of just how resilient she is. And she's got big dreams. And she's not going to let her sickle cell stop her from achieving them. And as long as you have the right network and a good, healthy support team around you, I think you can achieve absolutely anything.
Yeah, that's really important. And so Sickle Cell Day is on the 19th of June.
Yes.
What goes on there? So are people just raising awareness? Is it sort of all over social media? Obviously, we'll be dropping this for it as well. What happens on that day?
So this is a global awareness day. So we are having a whole day of interviews with inspirational speakers. So people with sickle cell that have that are like personal trainers, which is amazing because obviously exercise is a big trigger. We've got a fashion designer who's had her fashion accessories on like Paris Fashion Week runways and stuff. She's got sickle cell. So we, the whole day, obviously with lockdown and stuff, we're trying to be clever and just do stuff online, but it means that it's accessible to everybody. So we've got loads of different things going on. We've got people are doing fundraisers of their own. But yeah, it's all just about advocating and raising awareness about sickle cell.
And then after that, other events, obviously, hopefully things sort of open up a little bit more. We can go and do stuff, blah, blah, blah. So what events are coming in the future? Are there anyone you can tell us about?
Yeah, sure. So there's Sherfield Oak Golf Club in Hampshire on the 26th of June. They're doing a family fun day to raise money for us. And then on the 2nd of October, we have our charity ball, which is super fun. This year, the theme is Casino Royale.
I've heard about this.
Just a little. But yeah, so every year, this year, we have an annual ball where we raise money, raise awareness, and it's just an opportunity for people in the community to come together, support the charity, but just to understand a bit more about sickle cell and how it affects. And obviously, Sienna's the guest of honour, as always. And it's just really nice to kind of let our hair down and still carry on doing what we do.
Awesome. Where can people get tickets for that?
So you can go on Eventbrite or you can contact us directly and you can purchase from them.
I'll put it on my social media, of course.
Yeah.
So people can get it from there because I'm going to be performing.
Yay!
Which I'm very excited about. I haven't even spoke about what I'm going to sing yet. So I'm just. Do you know that I wrote a Bond song?
Did you?
I have.
Okay, so it's sorted.
I will play you it afterwards, and you were like, "No, we won't have that. We won't have that." Thank you so much for that. Like I said, we'll put all the links below so people can find out more about Sienna Smile and more events and stuff like that, and hopefully raise more awareness, and people can put this on their social platforms. So if you've liked what you listen to, you can just link it, and then you can send it to all of your friends and family. So because you've told me stuff that I didn't know.
Oh, good, amazing.
Which is amazing. Anyway, thank you so much. You're amazing, Hayley.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime.